Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing, with your hosts Glenn Thayer and the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. I'm Glenn Thayer. Today, Tom and I are going to talk about web marketing trends for 2013. We've come up with about 7 items that we're going to talk about here in this podcast. We're going to spend about 12 minutes talking about them. The first one we want to get into, and Tom, if you can help me out with this one, is 2013 is the year of content. And this is really big. I mean, the big buzzword around the marketing camps are content marketing and what it means. And so, Tom, tell us a little bit about what the year of the content looks like.
Well, you know, content has been real important for the last 2 or 3 years. And in fact, content's been important since the web started. But I think that 2013 will be the year that a majority of websites now jump on the content bandwagon, and not just with blogs and articles, but just the idea of using content to market their business and really spread content throughout other websites, and also to think about content strategically. I think that a lot of folks in the last couple of years, the biggest challenge was just to get something on the web, just to get some content going. Well, now the next step is going to be, let's get strategic about the content, let's incorporate it into our marketing plan, and let's use the content to drive sales. And to do that, they're going to need to put content into their actual sales process. And we've talked about this in other podcasts, the idea that the internet marketing now is going to become much more effective in prospecting than the old cold calling or the old selling techniques used to be. And I think that in 2013, and we're going to call it the year of content, not because it's just now happening. It's always been important, but because of the majority of companies that are jumping into this. And we see it because now with our client base, we spend so much more time talking about getting content on their website, when in the past we talked about SEO fundamentals and email marketing and the basics of website usability. Now we talk quite a bit about getting more content on your website and doing it strategically.
Well, then number 2, we go to Google. I mean, right now, obviously, we are doing a Google Hangout on air right now for our podcast. So this is being broadcast live on YouTube and on the Google Plus account. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we talk Google gets deep. Google Plus is huge when that, as far as that's concerned. Let's go deep with Google Plus.
Absolutely. So Google has been working on a lot of things in the background, and they've kind of been slowly sending out all of this new stuff. And I think that the power in Google is going to come in 2 different ways. One is the integration of all the Google apps and programs and software that's coming together. That's number 1. And then number 2, the much more tighter use of Google around local search and around location search. So what you're basically seeing Google do is get a lot more deep into user needs. So they're not going to be just a search engine anymore. They have a fantastic business model for developing all these things, and Google Plus is one of them, which we're broadcasting on. And I actually think Google Plus is going to be a new kind of social network. It's not going to be the traditional social network where you just go there and chat with your friends and so forth, but it's going to be a much more deeper social network that involves things like sharing analytics on your website, sharing documents, sharing video, sharing other kinds of content. And in that way, Google can do a lot more than LinkedIn can do, a lot more than Facebook can do. The issues that Google is going to face are really around user issues. Like for us even setting up this Google Hangout and getting this video going, it takes us a while to do that. They need to simplify that and make it easier. But I think that Google is going to be a much bigger player in web marketing even this year than they have been in the past. And they're going to do it by sticking with search as their core offering, but then bringing in all these different types of functions to support that. And on the mobile side, what we're seeing with Google Plus and Google Places is that they're really trying to make an effort to find where you're located when you do the search so that they can show you a nearby business. Now, all of this that Google is doing, they do it because they want to help people search the web, but they want to eventually get ads in front of you that are very targeted to what you're doing. So if you're on the go and you're mobile, and a lot of people are mobile now when they're using the internet, they want to be able to display the nearest business or whatever looks like it might be closest to your location, so you can actually drive there or contact them. they know that if they do that, their advertising is going to have even a better return because they're going to get you to what you want to buy, and it's going to have a higher return on the ads.
Now, how is that going to play out, if you will, when we're looking at the Android platform? Because that's proprietary to Google. So you have not only, with the explosion of mobile and wanting to know, but they own the platform as well. How is that going to play into these, different things like Google Plus as the year progresses?
Oh, absolutely. You won't know the difference between your Android phone and the software on that phone and Google. It's just going to be a merging of all that, kind of like what Apple does with their platforms. Now, the thing we're yet to see is how well will Google play with Apple. And at this point, they kind of somewhat play together, but somewhat don't. But I think that they have to in order for everything to come together and work, especially the advertising component of Google, which drives their revenues. I mean, we have to remember that Google makes no money from their search engine and their organic searches. They make their money from paid clicks and from advertising. And so all of this will have that advertising component to it. And you'll start to see it with, mobile ads or mobile text messaging or other ways for Google to get in touch with you as you're looking for a restaurant, and what do you know? You got an ad or a text on your phone telling you the restaurant's around the corner, keep walking, that kind of thing.
Well, talking from Google Plus, let's expand that and move on to number 3, which is social media is going to expand, and we're going to find different niche type of markets developing. So
right.
what is that going to look like?
Well, the thing about social media is that it's grown very, very deep in just a few years. And so there's just a handful of social media sites that have all the market, and Facebook has an incredible amount of marketplace. But it's tough to get really focused when you have that big a span. So Facebook just came out with a way to search for people that have an interest that you have. So you can do whatever you're going to do together. You're going to do a running race or compete in a triathlon or do a hike together or go bird watching or go to a museum, whatever it might be. Well, it's still difficult to find that group of friends, a core group of friends that share your interest. So what you're going to see happening, I think this will happen organically, kind of from the bottom up, is that these smaller groups will develop and then become part of larger groups that start to communicate specifically on that niche or that interest. So if you're a triathlete or if you're an art lover or if you're a bird watcher or whatever you're doing, you'll find a social network that deals just with that. And it's going to be so much more fulfilling for the user because they're going to get all this information on stuff that they're passionate about. Whereas Facebook is a lot of scrolling, a lot of da-da-da-da, what are they doing? What are they doing? Well, I haven't seen that person. Oh, yeah. This is going to be much more effective in social media. And then the marketing part of this will be very focused advertising and very focused leadership from content leaders in those areas that will develop revenue models for people, which is still a challenge for Facebook because it is such a strong vertical. It's almost like it's too big a shotgun approach for Facebook to market, and that's why their ads haven't really done as well as Google, which is very, very focused marketing.
Well, and you kind of bring up a really, really great point there too. Is we go back to Google Plus. If you jump back to Google Plus,
right.
Like the Google Hangouts. Lately in business is starting to use Google Hangouts as a way to do conference calls. So instead of doing a conference call and using freeconferencecall.com or one of the other services, they're using Google Hangouts because they can see each other and they can transfer files and they can chat. Everything can happen live and organically. That's something that's new, and that's something that Facebook doesn't have right now, which leads us into number 4 is the decline of Facebook, and Facebook kind of declining as the market leader from a social networking standpoint.
Right, and I probably have said this before and I've always wondered how Facebook can continue to go when they're not, they don't have a solid business model and they're not making a lot of money. Facebook may prove me wrong and do just fine, but I just think that the business model is what matters. So Facebook has to have a much better business model, or I think we're going to see decline in usage, or maybe not. Maybe the word isn't decline, but maybe it's impact. So Facebook will have less impact and less relevance as these other social networks will come up. So maybe they might still have 100 million users, but who cares? They're just looking at their friends and they're scrolling up and down and then leaving. Whereas a more niche social media network, they're interacting, they're setting up events, they're clicking on ads, and they're doing a lot more stuff.
Well, and also, we go back a couple versions of social media 1.0. We're looking at MySpace. and MySpace is making a huge comeback. And I've had a lot of circles that I've been listening to, people saying I'm going back to MySpace because how it's oriented towards music and film, and the niche right there, that becomes a niche. If you want music and you want new music, you go to MySpace to find it.
Absolutely.
So it's something new there. Let's bounce from social media for a minute. Let's get back to Apple this year.
Right.
Since we're kind of seeing a culmination from everything. What we say for number 5 is that Apple is going to become a corporate citizen.
Right.
So obviously we don't have Mr. Jobs with us anymore. So what is Apple going to look like this year?
Well, there's a few things that Apple does and Apple has that we tend to forget about. One is that Apple has a tremendous amount of money in the bank. I mean, I don't even know the number, but it's like more than many governments have. It's a huge number, and they can only sit on that money for so long. And so if they're not going to use that money for developing new, fantastic products, which we're not seeing happening. In fact, in the last year, basically what we saw from Apple was variations of the same thing that we've seen. That's really started with the iPhone. All we've really seen is different size iPhones with different functionality. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just not a wow factor that we used to see with Apple. So I really think the next trend for Apple is that they're going to get involved more in doing good and doing noble causes. And I hope they do, but that's what I'm predicting. And then it could be anything as something as simple as doing a dividend to shareholders. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of Americans that hold stock in mutual funds have a piece of Apple. So it'd be great for Apple to distribute some of the billions of dollars they have in the bank back to their shareholders. That's number one. The other two, the second thing is, what about some sales prices on some of their items? I mean, do they really have to stick with this top 100% retail pricing, even for older versions of things? That would be what I would call being a corporate citizen, giving back to the community, allowing more people to be an Apple consumer, but not having to pay $800 or $600 for an iPad. I hope that's a trend that Apple will make, and I'm concerned about them not having the Steve Jobs anymore, and will they be able to develop wow products? And we'll actually talk about what I think a wow product might be here in just a second.
So let's take a look at it from the next thing. We've got iPads, iPhones, which we're talking about smartphones and tablets, and really the explosion of mobile. I mean, mobile has gone huge, and I think we can see an increase, even more of an increase now and for 2013 and beyond in the use of mobile.
Absolutely. I think what you're going to see is, and I'm not sure if it'll continue to be double-digit growth, but we're definitely going to see more increases in the use of mobile. And we've seen some of the websites we monitor get around 25% of their traffic from mobile. And a lot of that's happened in 1 year. They went from maybe 5% or less than 10% to close to a third of their visitors coming from mobile. That's going to continue to grow. And I don't know where it's going to end up, but I think that you might get to the point in 2013 where 40% or 50% of your traffic can be coming from mobile. And that's huge. And that really leads into trend number 7, which is going to be the evolution of the laptop and the evolution of the computer itself. Because we're on the go, and because for us to be efficient in what we do in our jobs, we've got to be mobile. We've got to be able to get up and go and do things. I think we're going to see more hybrid computers or hybrid laptops, where basically it's the merger of a laptop and an iPad or a screen. And we're already starting to see that when Apple jumps in and gets this going right. And it's such a shame we don't have Steve Jobs here to help us with that. But if when Apple jumps in and says, okay, we've done it, this is a laptop with and without a screen. You can use it as a tablet. You can use it as a laptop. You can walk around and have meetings. It can be a touch screen. It can be an input device. When that happens, it's going to be great. And I have an iPad, and the biggest limitation of the iPad is you really can't input stuff. You can't easily write on an iPad. It doesn't work that well. Once we get over that limitation, and these portable hybrids can become input devices and output devices and also touch screens, I think that's going to be a big move in computing, and it's going to drive website stats to where you might see over 50% of your visits coming from a mobile device, where we don't know if someone's sitting at their desk when they pulled up your website and interacted with it.
That's going to definitely be interesting, Tom, to look at that. Yeah, a wow piece of product is an iPad that might have a dongle that will plug in that has all of your USB and all of your different imports. So you can either use it as a traditional iPad or you can use it as a full-blown computer. Both ways, that would definitely that would make my day.
That's right, and I think the screen size then becomes the variable. And I'm not sure if we'll ever see technology on screens where screens can be made bigger or smaller. So if you have, if you need a 3x4 screen, boom, you can make it. Or if you just need a 12x12, maybe that's coming at some point. But screen size then becomes relative to what the user's doing with their screen.
Which goes into user experience, which is a completely different podcast than this.
That's right.
So to wrap this up, so now we've got our trends and what we think it's going to be for 2013.
Right.
What are some action items for our listeners?
Well, I think at the top of the list is the content strategy. And this is more than just saying, well, let's get content written, let's go, go, go. But it's really sitting back and having a content strategy for your website. And we have a lot more content coming on that. We have some good stuff already on our website on how to do that, and lots of great resources. I think that it's important to get an account set up in Google Plus if you don't already. Now, keep in mind, it's very easy with Google Plus to end up with 4 or 5 accounts before you know it. So track all your Google Plus accounts by email, by whatever email address you use to initially set them up. And it probably makes sense to have one for your company, one for you as an individual, at least probably having 2 accounts. Explore developing your own social media website for whatever group or niches or part of your company. Build and monitor your website mobile traffic. So definitely want to be looking at your website on different screen sizes and monitoring traffic. And then keep an eye on the hybrids, not only because your users will be using them, but you might find that in your company you're more productive with one of these hybrids, especially if you're jumping on and off a train, in and out of meetings, or walking down the hall to do things. I think it's going to be a great technology for improving productivity in the office.
Well, Tom, thanks so much. And for everybody who's joined us for the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, thank you so much. And we look forward to being with you again on our next podcast.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com. If you have a website you would like us to review or an issue you would like to see covered in future podcasts, email us at info@intuitivewebsites.com.